Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Now, I want to be a channel that covers the most important things in entertainment, but especially the DC live action universe. And to prove that, right now I have found an exclusive variety interview with James Gunn where he exclusively talks about that amazing, groundbreaking Peacemaker Season 1 finale. So we really need to read everything from this interview because it covers a lot of interesting stuff. Not just about the finale, but clues about the future of the DCEU. So I say, let's do this. Peacemaker season finale, James Gunn on pulling off spoilers, shocking cameo by Adam B. Vary of Variety. Now, I'll be clear about this. Variety is the one that's got an inside ear at everything Warner Brothers. So I think this is a very important interview. Throughout the first season of Peacemaker, the titular costume vigilante, aka Christopher Smith, John Cena, has been working with a ragtag team of secret operatives in an attempt to stop an invasion by a horde of insect-like aliens called butterflies. Peacemaker and his teammates, Leota Adebayo, Daniela Brooks, Vigilante Freddie Stormer, John Economist Steve Agee, and team leader Amelia Harcourt Jennifer Holland track the butterflies to the underground lair of the gargantuan cow that is the aliens' only source of sustenance. And most of his team is crushed while fighting off the butterflies, who can burrow into humans' brains and control their bodies. Peacemaker is confronted by their leader, Goth, Annie Chang. With the aliens' true motivation, they were forced to leave their planet after ruining its environment, and they observe humanity going down the same path they did. So they are trying to steer civilization back on track. Goth invites Peacemaker to join them in helping to save the world. This is just great stuff by James Gunn, isn't it? Haven't seen Peacemaker yet. It is not available for me where I am. So I wasn't, I've got a YouTube channel. I love talking about and informing people about DC live action. So I had to be spoiled here. Instead, Peacemaker decides to kill the cow via launching Leota as a human torpedo into its body, because he knows the butterflies wouldn't let his teammates and now his friends survive. Peacemaker makes the ultimate sacrifice of perhaps the world, says Peacemaker creator and executive producer James Gunn, who wrote every episode and directed the finale. He sort of does the wrong thing for the right reasons. He does the thing that's spiritually right for him because it's honest and true and authentic to himself, but it's also perhaps problematic and what's going to come next for all of us. It's precisely the kind of messy, complicated plot turn that Gunn has perfected with the Guardians of the Galaxy movies for Marvel Studios. He's currently in production on Guardians Volume 3 in Atlanta and The Suicide Squad for DC Films, in which Cena, Holland and Agee first appeared. Peacemaker co-star Chikwudi Iwuji, who died in Episode 7, spoiler alert, also plays a major role in Volume 3. Again, I haven't seen it, so I spoiled it for myself, so don't start complaining. In his conversation with Variety, Gunn also talked about how DC responded when he included the Justice League, including Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash and Aquaman in the finale, why he took so long to agree to make Season 2 of the show, and whether Peacemaker and Vigilante may ever take their mostly one-sided bromance to the next level. When you started writing the first episode, did you know where you wanted to arrive in the final episode, or did you find your way as you wrote? I knew where I was going essentially. I took a while to put everything together just in terms of thinking what was the basics that were going to happen. There were some things that I wasn't 100% sure on. I wasn't 100% sure what Peacemaker's choice was going to be in episode 8. The show led me there, really finding out this was in a way a redemption story. It's about a character who is trapped in his own ideals, who has lived in a life like that because of trauma that he experienced. And in the last episodes, he's a different guy than the guy who killed Rick Flag. But I wasn't sure that it was going to be that. It's hard to call it a happy ending because it's also tragic at the same time. Yeah, the butterflies are literal mind-controlling aliens, but we learn in the finale that their aim is to save humans from fucking up the planet. How did you come to that idea? I didn't want to make their goal something that was just, you know, hey, we want to take over the universe, we want to conquer, we're thoroughly evil. I wanted the butterflies to be characters that were as multi-layered as the other characters were. And I think that Goff, in particular, as the leader of the butterflies, is a character who I like a lot and I find really interesting. She's very much like Peacemaker. Goff actually has a pointed line about being anti-science, which feels like it was a reference to the anti-vax movement. Was that your intention? We made the show while vaccines were starting up. I mean, there's so much anti-science out there, and anti-climate change, to me, is the really big thing. Believing that climate change is not affected by humankind, that's anti-science. It's not believing anything. That's how to do with people who are experts in their fields and have been working their whole lives to do whatever it's with vaccinations or climate change or whatever. So much of the show is about Peacemaker coming from a world of racist white men who are steeped in toxic patriotism and masculinity. Peacemaker's dad is literally DC's version of a KKK superhero. How connected was that for you to your experience with the alt-right? I think a lot. Some of that lines up with that experience. Some of that lines up with what we've seen uncovered in the United States over the past few years and has nothing to do with me. I mean, the fact that Peacemaker believes any Facebook meme he reads and somehow thinks that's totally fact. That's how we get to the place where, you know, people believe what somehow masks cause us harm. I mean, it's just nonsense. I really appreciated not only did you acknowledge that the Justice League would probably be the best people to handle the crisis in the finale, but they show up after the battle was already over. Oh great, it's frozen. Oh great, I might have to pause this in a minute. We didn't have the budget for them to show up on time. Never been able to do it. They had to show up late. So I'm going to pause this video because that's an interesting point, by the way. They had to show up late, the Justice League, because they didn't have the budget to do the whole thing, but just to have them there, all of them, well, nearly all of them, apart from Batman and Cyborg. And he does talk about that. He's asked about why Batman and Cyborg weren't involved. We'll get into it very shortly. I'm back, so let's go. So what was the conversation with DC like about bringing in the Justice League on the show? You know, I didn't have a conversation. I just wrote it and gave them the scripts. I don't think they really realised what they had agreed to until they saw what I had shot, which was the Justice League there. And then I think the full weight of it, and you know, what does this mean for the DCU, and all of that became huge pieces of conversation up to the very highest levels of Warner's. And to their credit, they let me get away with it. When Jason Momoa and Ezra Miller come in and shoot their cameos, I think before we ever shot the show, we talked to Jason about it. We were like, listen, Peacemaker says you fuck fish all the time, and we were a little afraid he would be upset. But he just laughed. He was so cool. So he was pretty much on board from the beginning. And then Ezra, I just found out through some common friends like my movies, say that again. And then Ezra, I just found out through some common friends like he liked my movies a lot. And so I asked if he would come in and shoot this scene, and he kindly agreed to do that. Actually, Marvel shot Ezra for us while we were shooting Guardians Volume 3. Right, very important to make this clear, because I've just seen the Flash news account on Twitter, who are great, and they do the Batman news account, they do everything. I don't have an issue with them, but they said, oh yeah, he's going to cameo in Guardians. He's not going to cameo in Guardians. The Guardians team helped James shoot that, and basically Warner Brothers did them a favour, which we'll read on in a minute, and that's why they owed them one. So this is nothing to do with an MCU DCEU crossover, just to be clear. Oh wow, the interviewer says. Yeah, but I mean, Marvel owed DC because of Peacemaker. Crew shot my screen test for Chuck Weedy for Guardians Volume 3, and then we got Ezra with the Guardians Volume 3 crew. Was there any conversation about including Gal Gadot or Henry Cavill? I don't really think so. I really thought it was going to be just Jason and Ezra. It was more like the extra thing because I found that he was interested in doing it. Wow. Why weren't Batman and Cyborg in the group? This is a question all you lot have been asking me, so take a listen. You know, I don't want I don't know what I can. There are reasons for it, but I'm actually uncertain whether I can say what those reasons are. It might have to do with the future stuff. Yes, of course it has something to do with the future stuff. You know, Batfleck's in the Flash movie. Something's going to happen to him in that movie, right? Henry Cavill was never going to be involved. He probably wasn't available, and it's about budget as well at the end of the day. Ezra probably did it for free, and Jason probably did it for free because they're contracted or something, right? So, but you can clearly see that's Henry Cavill's Superman. He did a great distance shot of Cavill. It's amazing. There's versions of this show where Harcourt or Vigilante or both of them don't survive their injuries. And in fact, watching it, I was thinking that at least one of them had died. So how did your decision to have them, you know, survive those injuries sort of evolve for you? Well, let's not forget, Amelia Harcourt is played by James's wife. He's not going to kill off her career on the show, is he? I think it just seems like the better story overall for me. I didn't want to kill either one of them. In my early sort of sketches of what was going to happen at the end, there was a chance that one of the other characters was going to die in that episode. From my point of view, I make it seem as if Harcourt's going to die in that one scene. For me, the whole reason for the song, Do You Want to Taste It, is the blood in Harcourt's mouth in that moment. That's what the song is about. More than anything else is that death, and somehow she survived. Now that you've been renewed for season 2, do you know what direction you want to take it? I'm still playing with a lot of different things. The most important thing for me in the first season was who Peacemaker was and where was he going. That was his personal journey. The butterflies and the plot and all of that is secondary to who he was as a character and what his changes were, as well as the other characters and where they began and where they end, because they all have little changes for themselves, with the expectation of Vigilante who's sort of a straight line the whole time. So I know where Peacemaker starts and where he ends, but I'm playing with other ideas around that and how that's going to play out. It's nuts, really. I mean, credit to James Gunn. I mean, he's working on Guardians 3. The guy desperately needs a break, and he's already got ideas in his head for Peacemaker Season 2. I'm so happy that this man is involved with the DC Extended Universe, and it should only be about his creative talent and nothing else. John and I did not agree to a second season off the bat because we wanted to make sure this is something we really loved doing, that we really wanted. That's why it's being announced now, because we had to work everything out. I didn't agree to a second season just off the bat. It wasn't a matter of like, okay, we're picked up. It's a matter of I just wanted to make sure it was really something I wanted to do. Vigilante and Peacemaker's friendship feels like it teeters between bromance and an actual romance. Do you really think it does? ? James says. People say that's on Twitter all the time, and I don't understand it. I understand how you could think that Vigilante is in love with Peacemaker. I'm not sure how I would see that Peacemaker is in love with Vigilante. Peacemaker, to me, he just seemed irritated by Vigilante for 8 episodes for the most part. I mean, there's times when he cares about him. He doesn't want him to die in episode 7. I don't know that's love. I mean, it's kind of love. Well, he kind of answers it in a way, and I mean, James Gunn's very good at exposing journalistic narratives, and I thought he did very well there. Well, Peacemaker is clearly enamoured of Harcourt, and that seems to be the romantic connection he's drawn to. But he and Vigilante, there's a bickering quality of their back and forth that people have clearly connected to. Would you want to explore that further in season 2? I mean, I can think about it. Honestly, it comes up a lot. Vigilante's latched onto Peacemaker, that's obviously the case. And that's important to who Peacemaker is. I'm just not sure. I mean, listen, I'm not sure Harcourt would ever really want to be with Peacemaker because he's problematic. And in the same way, I'm not sure Peacemaker would ever want to be with Vigilante because he's problematic. They're sort of in different worlds in some ways, but it's great that there is a connection between all these characters and maybe even a love triangle. The potential's there, but maybe James doesn't want to do it. We'll have to wait and see. You're in the middle of shooting Guardians Volume 3, which you jumped right into after finishing your first TV show. Is there anything you accomplished with Peacemaker that you've been applying with Guardians Volume 3? A little bit. I had as much fun as you could have during COVID making Peacemaker, and so I'm trying to apply that more to Volume 3 in all truth. The first 2 Guardians, I loved the cast and crew, but they were really difficult to make, and a lot of that was self-imposed difficulty by me. I realised after Volume 2 that I couldn't continue to live a life if I made everything I did like Volume 2, which I just killed myself over unnecessarily. I needed to balance my life a little bit better, and so I've been applying that to Volume 3. I think the Suicide Squad also has Enforced Volume 3, a lot in terms of how we're shooting it. There's a different type of groundedness, I think, in this movie that we had in both Peacemaker and Suicide Squad. I learnt so much from everything that I do. You talked about pitching HBO Max on a second spin-off series from the Suicide Squad. Have those conversations advanced at all? Very important. Yeah, that's advanced a lot. Hopefully in not too long people will know more about that. It's not 100%, but we've been working heavily on it, so that would be something that would happen in addition to Peacemaker Season 2. So very shortly we will find out what that spin-off project is. That feels like a pivot for you after spending so much time making feature films. Is that more appealing to you now? Yeah, I think I'm pretty much have decided that after I'm done with Guardians, I'm going to be doing television for at least a year. My mind's made up on that. Not all the shows that we're dealing with are things that I'm going to be writing and directing, so some of them may take different amounts of my time. Peacemaker is going to be me writing, me directing and spending all time on set. But other shows that may not be writing and directing or not directing all the episodes. Very interesting. Great interview from Variety. And James Gunn and Variety are very, very connected to Warner Brothers, and I'm not surprised they got that interview. So we found out some interesting things, that Peacemaker Season 2 is James Gunn creatively. I think what he's trying to hint is the next Suicide Squad spin-off or the next DC spin-off he's involved in, maybe he won't be as hands-on, and it'll be interesting to see who he gets to work with on that. Now, the Justice League stuff is very, very important as far as I'm concerned, because he was asked, where's Cyborg and where's Batman? Well, it's obvious where Cyborg is. Ray Fisher was never going to be involved in that because Hamada's involved in that, and Ray Fisher, you know, quit his job basically on Twitter. He said he would never work on any DC project involving Walter Hamada. That's nobody's problem or call but Ray Fisher's. So he was never going to be involved. We'll see what happens to Cyborg in the Flash movie. In terms of Batman, obviously we're getting Keaton. Who knows what's going to happen to Affleck? That was never going to happen. But let me be clear. To actually have the Justice League there after what happens with the Butterflies is amazing. Well done, James Gunn, because they would show up. You know, they would come in to find out what the fuck has gone on. So it's a great interview. I'm glad I brought it to you. I hope you enjoyed me reading it. And I will be back tomorrow with the DCEU Daily. Until then, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen. Do not forget to comment, like, share, and hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection. Follow me on Twitter @MoviesTVMad, and I'll see you again later. Bye-bye for now.